当然，首先呢，今天我们第一位的国际讲者，我们就邀请到了 Jonny Price。Jonny Price 是 Kiva 目前一个新的计划 Kiva Zip 的资深总监兼负责人。好，那我们就用我们最热烈的掌声欢迎 Jonny Price。
Thank you.
Do you like the theme song?
I love the theme song. I was going to jump up onto the stage like my predecessors, but I've never had a theme song before. So I wanted
to take it slowly.
I wanted to prolong the theme song by going up the stairs.
我应该要跳起来的，那但是你Did you do that? No, you just walk from here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stairs, longer song.
他就做个就很 longer song， 很长的歌。
So my name is Jonny Price, and I lead a program called Kiva Zip, which is a pilot program of a bigger non-profit organization called Kiva. And I'm delighted to be here. It's my first time in Taiwan. And I flew in from San Francisco yesterday, so if I fall asleep during my presentation, please forgive me.
大家好，我是 Jonny Price， 我是在 Kiva Zip 工作，那 Kiva Zip 也同时是 Kiva 里面的一个计划。那我是从San Francisco 来的，那如果今天有点时差，如果有点想睡觉，请大家见谅。
So this is the Kiva website. You can visit it at kiva.org, Kiva.org, and all of these pictures that you see are small business owners around the world that are fundraising for loans to help them grow their businesses.
大家可以看到，这是我们 Kiva 的网页。那这里的照片呢，都是我们的借款人，全世界各地的借款人。
And this is how the Kiva model works.
这是我们的一个所谓的借放款的模式。
We have 1 million lenders all around the world who visit our website and they view the different borrowers who are currently fundraising for loans.
你也可以看到第一跟第二，就是我们其实有几百万名的借款者在网络上。那你也借款者可以造访 Kiva 的网站。第二步。
Yeah, and then if we have 10 of those lenders, and it could be 10 of you guys from this room. If 10 of you each lend $25, then that's $250. And $250 for an entrepreneur in Uganda or Cambodia or Peru can be a meaningful amount of money that can really help them to launch or grow their business.
就像我们在这个房间里面会有10个人，每个人借出25块美金，那就是有250块钱可以借给全世界来自乌干达、肯亚或是柬埔寨、世界各地的人，想要借款的人。
So we call this concept crowdfunding. If you've heard of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, they're two of the biggest crowdfunding platforms in the world. Kiva is a crowdfunding platform, but we're a non-profit and we have a great social mission. On the regular Kiva model, we have an intermediary organization. You might say they're an agency or a go-between who administer the money. So once we've raised that $250, we send it to this partner, and then they send the money on to the borrower.
我们可以看到这个模式是，我们会有透过一个中介，当地机构，比如说在当地国家的一个中介组织，来帮我们做放款的动作。
And because these are loans, not donations, I think one of the coolest parts of the Kiva Zip model is that over time, when that borrower pays back their $250, you, as the 10 lenders on that loan, you get your $25 back. And then you can take it back to your bank account if you want to. But most people just re-lend that money on to the next lender. And so $25 of an initial investment can cycle over many times and help many entrepreneurs all around the world over the years.
我们可以看到，在你借出25块钱之后，这些借到你的钱的人呢，他会把钱还回来。那你拿到的这25块钱可以循环的再借给其他的人。
So this is our first ever borrower on Kiva. This is Elizabeth, and she's in Uganda in Africa.
这是我们第一位在 Kiva 的借款人，她是伊丽莎白，那她住在乌干达。
Since 2005, when we launched, Kiva has now moved into 78 countries around the world. We've made $570 million of loans. We have over 1 million lenders who've lent $25, and we've reached over 1 million entrepreneurs. So it's almost the same number of lenders funding the loans and borrowers receiving the loans. And these loans are paying back with a 98.9% repayment rate.
我们可以看到，这是目前 Kiva 在全世界的发展的状况，总共有78个国家有78个国家加入这个组织，加入 Kiva， 那有247个在地的合作伙伴，我们总共放款了5.7亿美元，相当于接近10几亿的台币。那我们的还款率非常高，总共有 98.9%。
And so how did Kiva get to $570 million of loans? How did we do a million? How do we have 1 million people that have made a loan on Kiva? 2 words. Oprah Winfrey.
欧普拉其实也是帮助我们非常多的。
So I mentioned before that Kiva works with these field partners who act as intermediaries between Kiva and the borrower.
Field partner 就是我们的在地伙伴，那他是我们 Kiva 跟当地借款人的一个桥梁中介。
But that's where Kiva Zip comes along, because in 2011, 3 years ago, we launched the Kiva Zip pilot program at Kiva. And the aim of Kiva Zip is to take this middleman here, this field partner, and to remove it.
我们在3年前，2011年的时候，我们在发展了2个计划，叫做 Kiva Zip。那这个这个模式非常的跟 Kiva 不一样，我们把中间人这个部分拿掉了。
So it's 2011. It's 6 years into the history of Kiva. We've grown a lot. We've had 1 million people make a loan. Why? Does anyone have any ideas? I'm going to open it up to you guys. Does anyone have any ideas why Kiva might want to experiment with piloting a model where we send the loans directly to the borrower?
我想在这里问一个问题，问大家，那为什么我们 Kiva Zip 要直接把中介拿掉，要直接借钱给当地的人？
Because
有人要问。
I'm not sure if you're allowed to.
我不确定他能不能讲。
No,
Because
sorry.
you hate your local partners.
因为你讨厌当地伙伴。
No, that is not the reason.
那不是理由。
Bad host. Any ideas?
有想法吗？大家？请说。
Yeah, that's a great reason.
这是一个好
Reduce
的
the
理由。
administration costs.
我们可以
Awesome.
我们可以把这个注册费用降低，行政费用，对不起，行政费用降低。
Congratulations, you get a cash prize. Now, does anyone else want to? No, you don't really get a cash prize. Okay.
你们没有办法拿到钱。
All right, here are the 3 reasons I talk about. The first is we want to make loans to people that can't qualify for loans from the partners for whatever reason. The second is, to the answer, we want to use technology to lower the costs of doing microloans, lower the administration costs, and pass those lower costs on to borrowers in the form of lower interest rates. So these, poor borrowers around the world are paying lower interest rates on their loans. And then lastly, we want to use our technology platform to more closely connect the borrowers, those 1 million borrowers, and the lenders who are crowdfunding those loans.
我们可以看到，这是为什么我们要创立 Kiva Zip， 在这3个点上面，那我们可以看到他所提出的东西在这里。
So let me just dig into those a little bit more. On the first reason, expanding access. This is a map of an island in Lake Victoria, which is in Western Kenya, and there are no micro lenders on this island. So it was impossible for small business owners on this island to access microloans to grow their businesses. But we can make loans there with Kiva Zip because we use a mobile payments technology called M-Pesa, which is very widespread in Kenya. And so we can now start making loans to entrepreneurs on this remote island in the middle of Lake Victoria. It's really helping us reach people. This new technology is helping us reach people that otherwise wouldn't be able to access microcredit.
肯亚的这个小岛上呢，是我们第一个发展 Kiva Zip 的地方。那这个小岛很特别，是他们可以用手机的模式来做借放款的动作。那这个岛上都是用手机来做借放款。
Secondly, we want to use this technology, M-Pesa, this mobile payments platform, to lower the costs of administering these loans. So now rather than having to administer loans in cash and having to send an employee out to this remote rural part of Kenya to make these loans, we can now send it directly to a borrower's mobile phone, and that makes it a lot cheaper. And all of our loans on Kiva Zip are at 0% interest. So that this borrower would pay no interest, would pay no fees. And so financially, it's a really great deal for these small business owners.
从经济的状况来考虑呢，其实这是一个非常好的模式，用手机来做借贷款的动作，因为我们是几乎是没有利率的或者行政费用的花费。
And then the third reason, the connections between our lenders and borrowers. This is a conversation that happened on one of our loans between this lender, Nyla, she lives in America, and this borrower that she made a loan to, Johannes, who lives in the slums of Nairobi in Kenya. And Nyla here says, "Congratulations on another successful Kiva loan repayment, John," which is Johannes. So Johannes just sent her a payment. He sent it via his mobile phone, and then our system recognizes that transaction and sends the money back to Nyla. And then Nyla says, "All my best to you always, Johannes, big asante sana." And asante sana means sheshe in Swahili. Thank you. And then Johannes, the borrower, replied and he said, "Hello, dear, my friend Nyla." And this is really what we're trying to do with Kiva Zip. We're trying to make friends out of lenders from all around the world and borrowers. Just before we started, I got my new friend, Vicky, to make a loan to her new friend, Margaret, in Kenya. So this is what we're trying to do, is to create connections and create friendships, really, between these million lenders who are part of our community and these small business owners around the world who we're trying to support both financially and through this feeling of empowerment and encouragement that comes from conversations like this one.
我们可以看到，这是借款人跟放款人之间不再是只有存在于就是借贷的动作，他们同时也可以成为一个伙伴的关系，甚至变成朋友。在这里我们可以看到。
So this is my funny joke.
这是我的一个笑话。
This is Facebook and Twitter. This is social media, and this is Taipei, which is the capital of Taiwan. So I took social media and the capital of Taiwan and made social capital. This is where you all laugh hysterically. And I cannot keep speaking for a few seconds while the laughter dies down.
这是我的一个笑话。我想，就是什么是社会成本呢？社会成本就是透过社会，就是 social media 跟你看台北是我们的首都，那就是社会成本，这是从英文翻译的。社会资本，对。
So, we're talking about social enterprises today. We use words like social underwriting on Kiva Zip, and we often talk about social capital. So, well, what does that mean? We think that oftentimes technology can be seen as a disruptive and a dislocating and a damaging force. There was a slide that you showed earlier. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was asking that question, right? Is tech the solution or the problem? I think it was. And, in San Francisco, where I live, there's a lot of friction between these tech companies, Google coming in. The Google buses that take people down from San Francisco to Mountain View every day, oftentimes there are protests at those buses. And so there is this friction between technology companies and established residents who are seeing their house prices go up, their rents go up. But we really think Kiva Zip is a great way in which technology and this idea of social capital can be a solution to these problems rather than contributing to them.
所以我们可以看到社会资本在这个地方可以呈现出，比如说我们可以看到就是很多人都会对就是 Google 这样做一个抗议，因为 Google 的存在让San Francisco 这个地方的物价上涨，那有些人就会去抗议，在他们交通车就堵住他们的交通车。那我看见的是社会资本其实可以跟这些是不一样的，所以我们现在看到的抗议是不一样，可以做出改变的。
So firstly, social capital is about doing good, right? Like a social enterprise is an enterprise that has a focus on more than just profit, has a focus on doing good for the planet or for people. Social capital for us is capital that wants to do good. Secondly, social capital is about connecting people in a community. So we saw that example of Nyla and Johannes before becoming friends. This one story is a borrower that was late on her repayments because she was sick. And I think any other loan, she would have been hit with late fees and she would have got a string of kind of severe messages from her bank. But with Kiva Zip, her lenders gave her grace, gave her flexibility, and were very understanding and encouraged her to just focus on her health and getting better rather than necessarily paying back the full amount of the loan.
所以 Kiva Zip 跟一般的银行的借放款是不一样的，我们是比较有弹性的。那这些也是我们在讨论的社会资本的一部分。除了借放款之外，这些人也可以建立其他的连结，贷款人跟借放款人之间都可以建立连结。
So, another example of this social capital is if David and Jonny here, they became customers of the borrower that they made a loan to on Kiva Zip. So not only did they make a $25 loan, but they went round to her restaurant and they ate her food and they became her customer. So when we talk about social capital, the second thing we mean is these loans are about more than just money. They're about community and connections and even customers for these small business owners.
我们可以看到Kiva Zip 呢也产生了这个社会的资本正向的影响，比如说他们也有了连结，借贷款人之间有了连结，那他们也有一些成为朋友的可能。
And then lastly, what we mean by social capital is this idea of democracy. So let me illustrate by giving a few other examples. Do you guys, anyone know Airbnb? Right, they're challenging what it means to be a hotel, right? They're saying anyone can be a hotel owner. This is a company called Lyft. I think Uber now is in Taiwan. I just looked on my Uber app and I see Ubers around us here in Taiwan. They're challenging what it means to be a taxi driver. This is, I mean, maybe the most widespread example. 10 years ago, everyone was using Microsoft Encarta on CD-ROMs, and that was edited by a very small number of editors, probably employed by Microsoft to write this encyclopedia. Now any of us in this room can be creating pages and be encyclopedia editors on Wikipedia. So in every industry, we're seeing a real trend towards democratization of access and what it means to be a hotel owner, to be a taxi driver, to be an editor of an encyclopedia. And we're trying to do the same thing with Kiva Zip. So we're trying to say, rather than a bank deciding who gets loans, what social capital means, the third meaning, is that it's not one bank who decides whether this small business owner gets a loan or not. It's all of us in this room decide based on our own criteria. And so we call it a democratization of access to capital. So the social capital part is it's being funded by society. Society is determining which small business owners are able to access the money they need to grow their business.
所以我们可以看到社会资本呢是可以就是更民主化，每个人每个个体都有可能可以做他们想要做的事情。那特别是我们刚才 Could you move back? 我们可以看到这样子一些这样的不同的创新的模式，比如说 Airbnb， 它就是可以让一般的我们空的房间可以出租给其他人，但是其实我们不是一般的旅馆连锁业者。那比如说我们看到的这个 Taxi 的招呼，它也不是一般我们的计程车队，而是只要我是一般人，但是我想要当人家就是搭便车，他收取一点廉价的费用，那我可以做这件事情。
So that is what is Kiva and what is Kiva Zip. Then what do we mean by social capital? This concept that we're really excited about, that these loans mean more than just money. And then lastly, I just want to say a quick few lessons that we've learned on the Kiva Zip team about why nonprofits should innovate and how we've tried to do that.
那我们在 Kiva Zip 这边做的事情呢，是可以让大家明白到，我们做的不单只是借放款的动作，同时我们也在做连结，这也是社会资本第三个很可贵的理由。
So, I mean, the first thing to be very clear on is when you are disrupting an established industry, as I think we are doing, there will be a lot of resistance. This is a picture of taxi drivers in Washington, D.C. protesting against Lyft and Uber because they see their taxi livelihoods as being threatened by these new disruptive competitors.
那我们也看到这种新的社会创新的模式也会引发一些争议，比如说比较我们一般传统的计程车行大车队，他可能就会抗议 Uber 跟这个 Lyft， 他好像抢了他们的生意，他们会感到没有安全感。
And so this is actually why I selected that song that I walked up to, not because I presume to think that we are the champions on Kiva Zip. We've got a long way to go before I can say we are the champions, but that song says, it's been no bed of roses, no pleasure cruise. I consider it a challenge before the whole human race, and I ain't gonna lose. So that song is about how whoever's singing, Freddie Mercury, has faced a lot of adversity and resistance, and yet he's persevered and pushed on through, and now he can come out the other side and say, we are the champions. We haven't come out the other side yet on Kiva Zip, but we're kind of trying to stick in there and persevere. We've had a lot of resistance both externally, those agencies, some of those intermediaries that I mentioned earlier, they can feel threatened by this Kiva Zip model. So we've had a challenge externally. Even we've had a challenge internally because the Kiva Zip model is quite different to the normal Kiva model. And so we've had some challenges even within our own company.
我们有来自内外部的挑战，那外部人当然会质疑我们的这样子的营运模式，那内部也会质疑，就是 Kiva Zip 的出现会不会带来一些挑战，跟 Kiva 是不同的。
And it's because of that resistance that I want to make this point as the first kind of lesson I've learned about how to innovate as a nonprofit. This is very controversial, by the way. You probably won't read this in many business textbooks, but we have tried to, from the first days of Kiva Zip, be quite siloed. We've tried to be in a bubble. And wall ourselves off from a lot of this criticism that we were getting from these existing stakeholders that we were potentially disrupting. And I believe that's important. If you're really innovating, if you're really being disruptive, people are going to tell you that is never going to work. Why are you doing that? You know, you're crazy. You should stop doing what you're doing immediately. And the more time you spend talking to those people, the more deterred and distracted and despondent you're going to be. So we really tried to wall ourselves off from that criticism so we could keep focused on what we were trying to do and remain confident in this idea of social capital that we were trying to create.
所以有时候我们在面对这些对我们的争议跟批评的时候，其实最好的方法是我们还是要隔离这些意见，因为当我们一直在听这些负面的讯息的时候，其实我们也会质疑自己。
And now 3 years into Kiva Zip, we're starting to communicate and collaborate a little bit more and to break down those silos. But in the early years, for me, it was actually very important that we did that.
我觉得对我很重要的是，但是我们做到了。
Okay. Secondly, I don't know if you've read this book, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. I'd recommend all of you to read it. It's a great book, both for businesses and if you're starting a company, but also for life more generally, I think. But the point of the book is, rather than trying to come up with the perfect plan before you start something in a laboratory or in a meeting room or in a classroom, the point of the book is get a product, a prototype out into the market as fast as you can. So rather than spending 6 months planning the perfect product, spend 6 days and get a really bad product out into the market and see how your customers react to it. And this is such an important lesson for me. When we first launched Kiva Zip, we didn't even know the right questions to be asking, let alone the right answers to those questions. But over the last 3 years, it's emerged both what the right questions are that we should be focused on, and then the path forward, the answers, emerging answers to those questions.
这本书是我特别推荐给大家的，不单只是你们要创业的人可以看，那也可以在其他你想要开始的，你要开始做任何事情前，你都可以看的一本书。
And then lastly, and this goes back to the very first slide, I think it's important that nonprofits take risks. Again, that might be a controversial thing to say. I think there is a school of thought that says because nonprofits work with, financially vulnerable clients, they should take fewer risks. Because if they take risks and something goes wrong, they can do some real damage to their clients' lives. And I see that argument. I think that's a valid argument. But I don't agree with it. I think it's really important for nonprofits to take risks. Just as Apple is taking risks to try and chase after greater profits, I think nonprofits need to be taking risks to chase after the benefit of doing a lot of good in the lives of the poor people that we're trying to serve.
在我们做 Kiva Zip 的时候，也有人会质疑说，质疑我们就是风险太高，是不是我们做这件事情会让我们的这个帮助的对象的，就是会毁了他们的生活？但是我相信，在非营利的组织来讲，还是需要就是有危机意识，然后肯勇于接受这个危机意识。
And so these are 2 examples. I'll just focus on this first one. This is we call it conversations. It's the feature on Kiva Zip where the lender can talk to the borrower. So you saw those beautiful examples earlier of communication between lenders and borrowers. Before we launched this on Kiva Zip, there was a lot of resistance to us doing that. People said, oh, there's a lot of risks. What if people, say bad things to each other? This could be so terrible, it could, really tarnish Kiva's brand. And there were all these risks, but they weren't based on data, they weren't based on reality, they were based on perceptions and these fears that people had. Actually, when we started piloting it, they turned out to be misplaced, they turned out to be wrong. But it was only taking the risk and actually doing it and enabling our users to talk to each other that enabled us to say, well, look at the beautiful conversations that are happening. Yeah, sure, there are occasionally some negative ones, but they're so small and we can identify them and weed them out quickly. And the positive effects of this feature far outweigh these negative risks, which before we launched it, people were kind of paralyzed by those fears and so reluctant to do it.
我们可以看到左边这部分呢，是我们 Kiva 成立前后的一个论坛。那其实，在里面呢，你会看到一些人对我们组织的批评跟建议。那很多时候有时候会是一些负面的言语。但是后来从我们的结果来看，我们发现这些负面的东西是大过于我们所做的正向的事情，大过于我们很多很有益处的结果。
So to summarize, if you're doing something disruptive, sometimes it can actually be a good thing to shield yourself from that criticism. Secondly, move quickly. Start doing it You know, don't come up with the perfect plan, because the plan that you come up with is you're going to realize it's wrong within a month of actually launching. So just move as fast as you can. See how quickly you can get a product to market. And then thirdly, if you're a social enterprise, budding social enterprise, nonprofit, take risks, because the upside, the benefits of us as a social enterprise community taking risks are that we're doing a lot of good in the lives of you know, the underserved populations that we're trying to serve.
所以我在这里我也给大家我们Kiva Zip 在的3个我认为的我们在创立的时候遇到的想到的问题，那这3个点也同时来激励你们。
So thank you very much for having me. I would love to talk with as many of you as possible afterwards. It's been a privilege to be here with you today.
好，谢谢大家，我的报告在这里结束。那有任何问题，欢迎来跟我联络。
Hey, Jonny, please wait a moment. Before we welcome Amy, I have a very simple question for you. I mean, do you encourage lenders to really face-to-face to go visit the borrowers, even if they live very far away?
Yes.
Are there cases like this?
There are. Firstly, I encourage lenders, period. So please feel free to
become lenders.
There is a Taiwan lending team set up by Ping, which has now made $28,000 of loans and has 250 members. So we want to double that number by the end of today.
好，当然希望今天所有人都马上立刻加入 Kiva， 然后我们在台湾其实有一个 Non-Zero 的这个 Kiva 的一个 group， 由我们朱平先生所创办，欢迎大家加入。Okay, but however, back to the topic, do you encourage lenders to go visit borrowers?
We have an acronym in the entrepreneurial space, ABC. It stands for Always Be Closing. So this is what I was just doing, always selling. But now to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah, we love it when we see lenders going to visit borrowers in person. Like we saw one example from the lender that went to the borrower's restaurant. For me, that is the ultimate fulfillment of this social capital idea, right? That it's a relationship, a friendship that maybe starts online and starts with money, but then turns into a friendship, or an actual face-to-face friendship and customers for the borrower. That we love to see that. And then if any of you make a loan to a small business owner in San Francisco and then buy a plane ticket to San Francisco to go and meet them face-to-face, come say hi to me. I'll show you around the Kiva office.
Okay, once again, big hands for Jonny.